few decades ago, buying a small airplane meant accepting a few predictable costs: fuel, maintenance, hangar space, maybe upgrades over time. Insurance was there too, of course, but it rarely shocked anyone. For many aircraft owners, it was one of the smallest numbers on the annual budget. Today, however, something very different is happening. Across the United States, Canada, and Europe, aircraft owners are opening their renewal letters and seeing something they never expected: insurance premiums that rival the value of the airplane itself. In some cases, the yearly insurance bill for a modest aircraft now approaches what that aircraft cost to buy. And that raises a serious question. How did we get here? Why is insuring an airplane sometimes becoming more expensive than the airplane itself? And what does this mean for pilots who are just getting into aviation? Especially those looking at classic and reliable models like the Cessna 172 Skyhawk, the Piper PA-28 Cherokee, or the Diamond DA-40 Star. The answer is more complicated than most people realize, and understanding it reveals a quiet transformation happening across the entire aviation industry. For many years, aviation insurance followed a fairly stable pattern. If you owned a simple trainer like a Cessna 150, a Grumman AA-1, or a Piper Cherokee 140 with the 160 horsepower engine, insurance companies saw those airplanes as relatively predictable. They were slow, forgiving, and flown mostly by careful private pilots who respected the limits of the aircraft. Premiums reflected that reality. Even when pilots upgraded to something larger and more capable, like a Cessna 182 Skylane or a Piper Saratoga, the increases were manageable. Insurance was simply another line in the operating cost spreadsheet. But slowly, the math began to change. One of the first things insurers noticed was the age of the global general aviation fleet. Many of the airplanes still flying today were built decades ago. Aircraft like the Piper Comanche, the Beechcraft Musketeer Sundowner, or the classic Cessna 172 are incredibly durable machines. But keeping older aircraft airworthy can be expensive. Replacement parts may be harder to find. Repairs sometimes require specialized technicians. And in some cases, a relatively minor accident can trigger a repair bill that exceeds the aircraft's value. From an insurance perspective, that creates a difficult equation. If repairing the aircraft costs more than replacing it, the insurer may face a total loss claim. Multiply that across hundreds or thousands of airplanes, and suddenly the economics begin to shift. At the same time, the aviation industry began introducing a new generation of advanced aircraft. Airplanes like the Cirrus SR-22, the Mooney M20U Ovation Ultra, and the Cessna TTX brought modern technology into general aviation cockpits. Glass panels, integrated autopilots, digital engine monitoring, composite structures. From a pilot's perspective, these innovations are incredible. They improve situational awareness, increase efficiency, and in many cases enhance safety. But when something breaks, the repair costs can be staggering. Replacing advanced avionics systems can easily cost tens of thousands of dollars. Composite airframe repairs often require specialized facilities, and even something as simple as a lightning strike can result in an expensive inspection process. Insurance companies noticed these trends very quickly, and their response was predictable: higher premiums, stricter requirements, and a much closer look at pilot experience. Another shift that insurers have been watching closely involves performance. Today's aircraft are faster and more capable than ever. Take aircraft like the Lancair 4P or the Epic E1000GX. These machines offer performance that would have been unimaginable for personal aircraft just a few decades ago. They can cruise at speeds that rival small business jets, but that performance also means higher consequences when something goes wrong. High-performance aircraft demand discipline and skill. Transition training is critical. Insurance companies increasingly require detailed pilot qualifications before issuing coverage for these aircraft. And in some cases, they simply decline coverage entirely if the pilot's experience doesn't meet their standards. Even aircraft designed to bridge the gap between piston and turbine power are being scrutinized. The Piper M600 SLS and the Daher TBM 960 are remarkable airplanes. Fast, efficient, and capable of traveling long distances with impressive reliability. But from an insurance standpoint, they represent significant financial exposure. A single accident involving one of these aircraft can easily produce a multi-million-dollar claim. As a result, insurers often require simulator training programs and substantial turbine experience before offering policies. And then there are turboprop workhorses. Aircraft like the Pilatus PC-12 NGX and the Quest Kodiak 100 are known for their rugged capabilities. They operate from short runways, remote airstrips, and challenging environments. These aircraft are beloved by their owners for good reason. But insurers see the operational environment as an additional layer of risk. Short gravel runways, remote maintenance facilities, unpredictable weather conditions. All of these factors influence how insurance companies calculate premiums. Now, let's talk about something interesting that doesn't always get enough attention. Pilot experience trends. Many aircraft owners today are flying fewer hours each year than pilots did decades ago. This is especially common among retired owners who may fly recreationally rather than professionally. Aircraft like the Socata TB-20 Trinidad, the Piper PA-46 Malibu, or the Beechcraft Bonanza G36 might spend long periods sitting in hangars. From an insurer's perspective, low annual flight hours can increase risk. Skills fade. Procedures become less familiar. Decision-making may slow in high-pressure situations. That's why many policies now include requirements for minimum annual flight hours or recurrent training. And sometimes those requirements can determine whether coverage is even available. Another interesting factor involves experimental and kit-built aircraft. Aircraft like the Vans RV-10, the Kitfox Series 7, the Zenith CH-750 STOL, and the RANS S-21 Outbound have become incredibly popular. They offer performance, versatility, and affordability that certified aircraft sometimes struggle to match. But each experimental aircraft is unique. Build quality can vary, documentation varies, and that makes risk assessment much more complicated for insurers. As a result, insurance for experimental aircraft can fluctuate significantly depending on the builder, the pilot, and the aircraft's operating history. And of course, we can't ignore the rapid expansion of the light aircraft category. Aircraft like the Pipistrel Virus SW, the Aeropract A-22 Foxbat, and the Icon A5 are attracting a new generation of pilots. They are efficient, modern, and often more accessible than traditional aircraft. But because many of these pilots are relatively new to aviation, insurers must carefully evaluate experience levels and training programs. All of these elements combine to create the environment we see today. Higher repair costs, more advanced technology, complex aircraft, changing pilot demographics, and a shrinking number of insurance providers willing to operate in this specialized market. Together, they have pushed aviation insurance into a new era, and now even the world of private jets is experiencing similar dynamics. Aircraft like the Cirrus Vision Jet SF-50 and the Honda Jet Elite have opened the door to personal jet ownership in ways that would have seemed impossible a generation ago. But insuring jets introduces another level of complexity. Higher speeds, more demanding operating environments, and significantly larger financial exposure. When you step into larger business jets such as the Cessna Citation Longitude, the Embraer Praetor 600, or the Gulfstream G800, the insurance requirements become extremely detailed. Pilot training programs often involve advanced simulators. Crew requirements may apply, and policies are tailored carefully to match the aircraft's operational profile. These trends are shaping the future of aviation ownership in ways that many people are only beginning to realize. For new pilots looking at aircraft like the Diamond DA-50RG, the Pipistrel Panthera, or the Sling TSI, insurance considerations may influence which airplane they ultimately choose. In fact, many aircraft buyers now contact insurance brokers before they even make an offer on an airplane. They want to know one simple thing: can I insure it? That question alone is reshaping the market. Before we continue, I'm curious about something. If you're thinking about buying an airplane someday, how much does insurance factor into your decision? Do you see it as a manageable operating cost or one of the biggest obstacles to ownership? Share your thoughts in the comments. It's always fascinating to hear different perspectives from pilots and future pilots around the world. And those conversations often reveal trends that aren't obvious at first glance. Now here's something else worth thinking about. Higher insurance costs might actually change the types of aircraft people choose to fly. Some pilots may move towards simpler machines like the Piper Cub J3, the Cessna 150, or the Piper PA-18 Super Cub, aircraft that are easier to insure and cheaper to repair. Others may continue pursuing high-performance aircraft like the Extra 330, the Extra 330LX, or even advanced turboprops like the King Air 260 and the King Air 360ER. But with more training requirements and stricter insurance oversight. In many ways, the insurance market acts like a quiet regulator in aviation. It shapes behavior, encourages training, and sometimes limits access to the most demanding aircraft. Whether that ultimately makes aviation safer or simply more expensive is still a matter of debate, and that debate is likely to continue for years to come. One thing is certain, though, the world of aircraft ownership is evolving. The days when insurance was an afterthought are long gone. Today, it's one of the most important factors every aircraft owner must consider, and understanding how that system works may be just as important as learning how to fly the airplane itself.